Hi, Asher. Thanks for meeting me today to talk a little bit about what you're up to post grad. But before we get started, if you wanted to just introduce yourself quickly.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Asher, Asher Martin-Rosenthal, long last name. Um, I graduated in the spring of 2024 from Northwestern. I was a history major and a computer science minor. And after graduation, I have left the great state of Illinois and moved to New York City, specifically Brooklyn, where I work for the Department of Justice in the Eastern District of New York. Specifically, I work in the uh, business fraud division, securities fraud division, um, and we prosecute white collar crime across New York and the country.
Oh, that's super interesting. I'd love to just hear a bit more about your journey and what led you to your current role.
Yeah, so you know how it is at Northwestern. This is like an internship rat race, and like sophomore and junior year, it's always a little crazy. I never really knew what I wanted to do. Um, and I just was like applying to random internships. And I got an internship my junior year working at the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is a branch or it's a part of the federal government, um, as like a legal assistant. And I really enjoyed that role. That role was like it was very directly helping people, trying to win cases for people who were discriminated against in the workplace. Um, and I also enjoyed working for the government specifically. I thought that it felt very important. It felt very exciting. Um, and yeah, I am in New York because I'm originally from Massachusetts and I kind of always wanted to come back here. And it's a great place to be. And I love Chicago as well, but it's also exciting here. How I actually got this job, I randomly saw it on Google Jobs and just threw an application, never believing I would get it. And here we are. It's not like the most exciting story, but I think that's how a lot of this goes nowadays.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. And I'd love to just hear a bit more about what a typical day looks like for you in your division and the work you're doing.
Sure. We have a bunch of fancy names for it, litigation specialist, whatever. I'm a paralegal. And the general role of paralegal is you need to do whatever the attorneys need you to do on any given day. So I work directly with the AUSA's assistant U.S. attorneys. They work directly for the U.S. attorney who is appointed by the president. So it's a pretty clear hierarchy, but it's kind of like big jumps. Um, so they are usually doing about 3 or 4 trials at any given time, or 3 or 4 like major cases. Um, so I'm assigned to right now, I think 25 cases technically, which isn't really fair because, we only have about 10 trials a year and, there's hundreds of cases. Not everything goes to trial. They're all at different stages. Some can be in the investigative stage where we work a lot with the FBI or the IRS or some agency, sometimes Homeland Security. And then some, you're like one of my trials right now, or one of my cases right now is going to trial on May 5th. So we're in like the final stages where we are prepping exhibits. I got to print exhibits for like 5 hours today. Um, so you kind of work across the spectrum of cases of like that what stage they're in. And so it's very different tasks based on each stage. But yeah, the general tasks are a lot of file management, a lot of exhibits, a lot of close readings to find things to redact, summarizing legal documents so that the attorneys don't have to read it. And then when worst comes to worst, you got to sit and print binders and binders and binders of exhibits for hours. But that's necessary for the processes of justice. So yeah, that's a normal day. It's very hard to say like a very clear thing I'll be doing. I never really know what I'll be doing when I show up to work. It's weird. It's like Severance a little bit.
That's really interesting. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, managing that many cases at that many different stages feels very
Yeah.
different.
Sometimes I'll like draft a whole subpoena for a case I had no idea I was even on. And I'm like writing a subpoena to some company. Like, huh, this is interesting.
I would love to hear how your background in history influences your approach to your work and the cases that come across your desk, whether that's, hard skills or just lessons learned.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I loved being a history major. I loved it forever. I still love history and I hope to continue to learn it for a very long time. Um, I think that on a very like basic level, there is reading and writing in this job. And I don't even know if I can say that for all jobs nowadays. So I do get to read long legal briefings. They're not quite as interesting as the readings I had for, whatever random history class at Northwestern, but I'm used to reading a lot of pages on any given weeknight, so that's definitely helped. Writing a little bit as well, but I think the biggest thing that history helps with is history at Northwestern especially is usually built around like large long-term projects, especially when you get into the 300 level classes. You get assigned the final essay on like day two, and you think about it and you slowly build it up through the whole thing and the whole quarter, and eventually you create a great paper. And this is that on an even longer scale. Like these trials take years. So this job usually lasts for a year or two. Most people don't stay much longer. Um, I won't see a single trial from start to finish because the trial will usually take around 3.5 years. So the trials I started halfway through, I might get to see all the way through. And this one I have in May, I probably started with it 75% done.
Yeah.
But you just have to be able to work on such a long time scale and not lose sight of the eventual goal, not lose sight of all the moving pieces. And it feels in many ways like writing those, 40-page term papers for a 300 level history class. Um, and I'm very glad that I have those skills. I think it's very useful and something that the history department uniquely gifts to their students.
Yeah, that's, really great to hear as a current history major undergrad
Yeah.
who's going through a lot of that process. I
Yeah.
think history does kind of uniquely equip you with those close reading and writing skills that you need in maybe less jobs, but definitely in a job like
Yeah.
yours. So looking ahead, I was wondering if you see yourself continuing in the legal field or if there's any other areas you're interested in exploring. You can also, of course, not know what you're
Yeah.
looking to do.
I don't think anyone knows what they want to do, but I definitely don't. A lot of people who work this job, I said they stay here for a year or maybe two, and then they apply to law school and go to law school. I don't know 100% if that's how I feel. I think that it's definitely a path that I'd like to look at. I it's challenging because I've seen a very specific kind of law. I've seen prosecution of massive federal fraud cases, which is one drop in a giant bucket of a career. So I am interested in learning more about it, just like generally. But it's hard. I think one thing that Northwestern really teaches us is that you should have all these multiple interests, and I think it's amazing, that I got to study history and computer science first of all. But I also think when you first graduate, it leaves you with this feeling of like, oh, Northwestern students especially have so many interests, so many things we want to do. And picking one is probably more of a challenge than if we didn't get to like foster so many interests in school. But I think overall that is a gift and not a curse. So, having too many things I want to do, I never stress about too much. So that's how I feel about my future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think there are, of course, other outlets for a lot of interests. I agree. Northwestern students tend to do a lot. I know I saw you were the president of Sherman Ave when you were here,
Oh
which
yeah.
is quite different from the legal field as well. So
Oh
just
yeah.
the
Hey,
testing.
and the crossword team. Don't forget the crossword team.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Working in government right now, particularly, it's a bit of a crazy time. Just in general, government is always changing. So I was hoping to hear a bit more about how you feel about working in government and working in the legal field.
Yeah. Working for the government is very interesting. I've never really worked for a company yet because I told you like my internships was with the government and all this stuff. There's certain things that you just don't have. There's no HR. It just doesn't really work that way. There's no raises and promotions and bonuses. Everyone gets paid on like a preset schedule that raises with inflation and all this stuff. Um, it's not very high tech. We have like I have a 2011 Dell Mac, but not MacBook, Dell computer. Um, but I think one thing that's really interesting is that the people here really care about what they're doing because there's no way you could possibly say they're just in it for the money, especially these attorneys I work with, because they went to great law schools, they have great experience, they could go work at a law firm and make 10 times the salary they make. Instead, they choose every day to take a pay cut to do this work because it like means stuff to them. And it's very cool to work around people who have that kind of drive. Um, just generally working for the government right now is very strange. There's a lot of changes that have happened with like Doge. We have to send an email every week saying 5 things we did. Um, and people are getting fired and people are getting replaced. And especially in the Department of Justice, it's just like very unclear what the future is. But I've been very impressed by um, people's ability to just like work and continue to do the work that they care about in the face of so much uncertainty. So yeah, it's been a great experience.
Yeah, I think the commitment and dedication of local government and local workers is always necessary and impressive and even more apparent in times of change.
Yeah.
Um, it's great to hear that you're doing well and enjoying your work. I'm sure everyone back here at Northwestern wishes you the best, and I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me today.
Yeah, you too.